This debate could mark a turning point in the race.
Anything could tip it in one way or the other.
He needs to show that he's got the fire in him to go another 4 years.
What I've been able to do with the COVID,
And if he was supposed to comfort people who were concerned about his age and his ability, that did not happen tonight.
There are at least some House Democrats talking to the White House about having him step down.
If you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
We are coming on the air. Shots have rung out at a rally where President Trump was addressing the crowd.
People just hit the ground. We jumped beneath our elevated stage. It was a chaotic moment.
Remarkable to see the 45th president of the United States walking on the floor of the convention after being grazed by a bullet.
There with its running mate, J.D. Vance.
President Trump represents America's last best hope.
We will press forward, and together we will win, win, win.
While this convention is unified, the Democratic Party is divided.
The president is under pressure to drop out of the 2024 race.
Another twist in what has already been a historic election cycle. President Biden says he will end his re-election bid.
I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
America, hope is making a comeback.
A hell of a lot can change in 4 weeks.
Our campaign, this campaign, is a fight for the future.
And we will make America great again.
Hello, I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns in the Spin Room in Philadelphia. Welcome to a very special edition of America Decides, a special presidential debate position. We are just 2 hours away from that very first debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. And the stage is set at the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia. Harris has been in the city of brotherly love since yesterday and has already toured the debate site. Trump arrived in Philadelphia just moments ago. He has been working with his campaign staff, reviewing his policy positions. To discuss all of this and beyond, we have Weijia Jiang and Finn Gomez joining us now live from the Spin Room. Guys, it's great to see you. And wow, that introduction, the past 2 months of this campaign, we use the word unprecedented a lot, but that is certainly how to describe these past couple of months. It's been a wild summer for all of us. None of us have gotten any rest. But tonight is a night that we could see potentially another type of game changer. I want to start with you because you've been covering Kamala Harris, and it seems like the focus is on her tonight because this is her first presidential general election debate. How has her campaign been preparing? What are they kind of identifying as the goals?
So she has been poring over materials for almost a week now. In fact, she was in Pittsburgh, holed up in a hotel downtown with her close aides. And, she was studying past performances of Donald Trump because, as you mentioned, this is her first presidential debate. He's already had 6. So that's a lot of material to go through. She's also talking to Hillary Clinton, who is, of course, on the other side of the attacks. By the way, our own Finn Gomez confirmed that nugget earlier today because she wanted to hear from Clinton what it's like to be on the receiving end of Trump's attacks, any advice that she has for her. And, she's also been studying policy because Harris really wants this to be focused on her ideas, how she can be a change agent even though she is an incumbent. And so, all of this together, not to mention practicing on a stage with bright lights so she knows what to expect. I mean, this is the ultimate student, right? And it could not be more drastically different from Trump's approach.
Exactly. I mean, these candidates couldn't be more different from one another. And as you mentioned, their approaches to debate are so drastically different. Finn, how has the Trump campaign been preparing? How has the former president been preparing?
They have been adamant in saying that they are not doing debate prep sessions. Adamant about that keyword. They are reviewing their policies, his policies. It's informal, they say. It's more keeping in line with how he's done it in previous debates. You did say 7 debates, presidential debates that he has had. He's also had about 17 debates overall, including the primary debates. So he's well versed in that. But he has gone over the policy proposals. He does have a debate preparation team. He does, including Tulsi Gabbard, Matt Gaetz, and so the one word I keep hearing from them is that when I asked a senior advisor a little while ago, they told me, asked them about personal attacks. Should we expect personal attacks from Donald Trump? They say they sort of deflect a little bit, saying that they are going to focus on her incompetence. Her incompetence. That's a key word. They keep telling me, and it's more focused on her record, her last 20 years. And he's going to try to really hold on to the mantle of being the change candidate, even though, of course, he's already been a president before, but also because they're really going to try to connect her to the Biden administration's immigration policies and foreign policy, and also economy, the biggest issue of the cycle.
Yeah, we've seen that in poll after poll. I mean, you mentioned that she was studying Hillary Clinton's past debates and spoke to the former Secretary of State. You know, we've been talking a lot over the past several days about this massive gender gap that we've been seeing in our polls. And I'm wondering if Harris is preparing for the kind of the physicality of this. I mean, I remember all of those headlines after Trump's debate with Clinton, where that was kind of more pronounced.
So the thing about tonight's debate that's different from the particular incident you're talking about, because as you'll remember, Trump followed Hillary Clinton around the stage, and he was right behind her. And Clinton later said, I wish that I had just told him to back off. They will be at podiums standing about 6 feet apart. So there's not that movement. But all three of us have been in a room with the former president, and he has a presence. He has an energy about him. He is a very big man that I don't know that people realize. So that physical presence will be there, not to mention whatever might come out of his mouth. We've seen before there have been sexist, there have been misogynistic remarks, and she is preparing to handle those in a way to be unbothered. She doesn't want to take the bait. She wants to remain cool and calm and collected. Now, whether that can happen in real time is very different from having a stand-in insult you. But I think what's interesting here, guys, is that she's preparing for that. But the element of surprise could really, twist her up. What if Trump is disciplined? What if he doesn't launch personal attacks? What if he is a different Trump? Because we've seen him sort of be a chameleon based on his environment, and she's not prepared for that. But we don't know, because, they've really been tight-lipped about their playbook.
And they've kind of, to your point, have prided themselves on not having a, public strategy. And actually, senior advisor to the campaign told us yesterday that Trump, in his words, is like Muhammad Ali or Floyd Mayweather. You don't know how he's going to come at you, to your point. I mean, how would you describe it?
I think you have seen in recent weeks, since Harris has moved up to the top of the ticket, a different Trump that we've seen in previous part of the cycle, where he's been more undisciplined. He's been more back to the 2016 Trump, more just sort of like this visceral sort of perspective, and that could backlash tonight. That could very much backlash. We've seen the gender gap. We've seen that. It's enormous. It's historic. You've reported on it. The fact of the matter is he has to appeal to suburban women voters. And if he does launch personal attacks, if he does not go after policy and he goes after personal attacks, that could be politically damaging to him with just 56 days out to the election.
And 56 days out, and Weijia, as you mentioned before, this could be the only time that they face each other in a debate. This could be the last chance.
Right, the only chance, and that's why it's so important, because as we saw in that open, so much has happened in the past 2 months.
So much.
But that means that she has had a very truncated time as the presidential nominee. She hasn't been able to, make sure Americans know who she is, who she stands for. We have CBS News polling that shows more than a third of voters in key battleground states still don't really know who she is. So this is an opportunity, and they have not agreed to a second debate yet. We would love to have them on CBS News, but they haven't agreed to anywhere else. So this could be it. And depending on how tonight goes, I think the teams will have to decide whether they want to do it again.
All right, what a wild ride. Glad to be on it with the two of you, and more to come tonight and beyond. How many days to go?
56 days.
56 days.
Let's go.